of Conversations with Michael. Again, thank you for joining me here as we come together once a month to share another message from Michael and to connect with each of you in a way that we haven't been able to do, speaking to all of us souls who have chosen to be on this planet at this time. It's been a long time since we've had this opportunity where we could feel that kind of support, not just from the angelic realms, but with each other. So let's take a moment here as everyone who is tuning into today's show can feel then the energies that are being shared between each of us. In a way, every time we do come together, we create our own sacred circle, and then we allow that energy to circulate throughout this whole hour that we spend together. And then that energy in that circle continues even after this show ends as supports to each other. So, thank you again. We're streaming live here from our home studio just outside Portland, Oregon, and this marks a special day for those of us here at Teachings of Michael. We're simulcasting for the first time on our website, on our YouTube channel, and as well on two of our Facebook pages, the Ancient Wings page and the Masters Unplugged page, for the first time. And that's a big moment for me. I've been playing with a lot of different softwares to work with that, and it wouldn't be a challenge for me if Michael wasn't involved in these sessions with me. But because his energy is so present, I can't have something that requires a lot of mentaling or a lot of mindfulness. So I did find something in working here, broadcasting from my Ecamm Live software as well with Zoom, that then feeds through Live Leap, which is not an app, but actually a website that you can go to where they will broadcast multiple streams to a variety of different Facebook pages, as long as you are managing or you're the administrator of them. So if you have any questions or comments about any of our programs or services, feel free to contact us anytime. And of course, we have a variety of different classes coming up. The one coming up next week will be the I Spirit 1 program. This is a 6-month program that's available to anyone that has already gone through the whole awakening experience and now wants to embody their own unique relationship with their own soul nature. It's a dynamic class, and it's now available to anyone too who would like to use what we have just created as of a few days ago, a no-interest 6-month payment plan to make it a little easier for some of you. So check out our Masters Unplugged page for the whole array of different online classes that we present every 2 months, as well as the Master Circle every month, the Masters Unplugged sessions that happen on our Facebook page twice a month. And I think you'll find that there's a variety of options there that are all in service to all of you. Let's take a deep breath here together. So we now turn this over to Michael. Yes, indeed. Very good, Robert, very good. We enjoy knowing that now we are simulcasting in a way that's more reflective of how we are on this side of the veil, the non-physical realms, multifaceting, constantly multifaceting in our multi-dimensional relationship with all of life. For those of you that are new to these teachings, if that's what you want to call them, Robert here has agreed to act as a type of spiritual messenger for my presence. But it gets much more personal than just that. Because together we are sharing a relationship that is actually the basic birthright of every human being. It's been labeled a lot of different things, this relationship. But we like to present it in a way that it just looks kind of normal, which makes, of course, not having that soul nature connected to you feel very unnormal, unfulfilling, unrewarding. This relationship is not for everyone. It will turn your life upside down. It will rearrange your entire biology, and it will shift your human identity in ways that will indeed challenge your mind. And so a natural question would be, who would want such a relationship? And we would say clearly, truly only those who want to experience a type of freedom that you discover from the inside out. And how do you reclaim this for yourself? This type of freedom. A freedom that comes not from others allowing you to be free. Oh, you've tried that. But a freedom because you've allowed the very presence of who you also are to freely be in your life, in this physical reality, in this physical body, in this conditioned mind with these conditioned emotions, allowing it all to coexist, and watching, observing how much of that ends up transforming over time. You begin by becoming aware of your own beliefs and eventually realize that none of them are really capable of creating this experience for you. Some of you have tried. Well, most of humanity is still trying. Why is that, though? Because all of these beliefs have been created by your own mind. And your mind isn't qualified or even capable of granting such a freedom. If it was, it would have created it by now. And the history of humanity would look drastically different than how it appears now. Well, the mind has tried to grant you this freedom from the outside in, but it takes a true master to go within. And that's who we have the honor of serving, of working with. This sacred relationship between the human and soul doesn't really sit well with that conditioned mind. And if we stop asking the mind to try and figure out the mystery of life, how will you ever know who you are and why you are here? And as strange as this all sounds to your mind, there is a part of you that just knows without knowing how it knows. That's crazy talk to your mind. But this part of you, it knows that the mystery of life will never, ever be fully understood. So it just stopped trying. It didn't give up because it failed to find the answer, and that's kind of the agenda that your mind would take. The mind would suggest to that part of you, you just need to work a little bit harder, focus more, get a little more information. But this part that we are speaking of simply knew that such a search is futile, for it leaves any being always looking outside of themselves. No matter how many ways you're able to dissect life, this mystery will always exist outside of your reach. And so you naturally would ask, dear Michael, what is the point of all this? If it's out of our reach, if it's never going to be discovered, if we can't take the mystery of life, analyze it, break it down into bits and pieces, and create our own mental puzzle. Well, that part of you that knows without knowing how it knows has already made a very bold choice. It just decided to live. And again, this doesn't sit well with the mind. There's no agenda there. You just decide to live without knowing why you're here, without knowing what you're supposed to be doing while you're here. But in that choice, the choice just to live, it discovered a presence within that was always resonating within a feeling, perhaps more appropriately in a state of consciousness that we call joy. We've been drumming this whole notion of being in your joy for the last 26 years here through Robert. Sometimes even Robert says, when are you going to stop needing to repeat that? But that is actually freely available to any of you right now. Not because this joy discovered the long lost answer. Well, in a way it did. In a way it did. So let's just take this moment and discover that presence of joy for yourself. Let's just take a moment and feel. Even if for a lot of you, what you are feeling has nothing to do with what you've experienced in your past. And if you're using your mind to find that place of joy for you, then you're going to miss the opportunity here because it's limited. Let's imagine how it would feel right now if everything that you perceive that you lack is now in your life. Would that be enough to give you permission to actually now feel this joy? If everything that you perceive that you are lacking has now been fulfilled, and what do you discover when we give you permission by asking you to give yourself permission to feel this joy by just pretending that this whole drama around trying to find the missing piece, trying to feel more fulfilled, what if it was always there, but only becomes available to you because you just stop? You just stop. And you breathe. You stop recreating the same human story every single day. Because in that story was not written by this part of you that we are speaking of. The author of that story, for the most part, has been your mind. Well, we know the mind wants to know, where did this joy come from? And many will say it comes from the One. It comes from the source of life. It comes from God itself. And perhaps all that is true. All we know is that it exists. And because of that, we too feel a tremendous sense of joy. That would be like taking a day trip to go visit the ocean, like the one behind us here. And when you got to the ocean, instead of feeling the joy of witnessing such a beautiful creation, an element of life here on earth, can you imagine taking that trip, spending the whole day, perhaps your whole life, trying to figure out where did the ocean come from? Imagine living life without joy. And as a human being, that's not too hard. Most of humanity has settled for a life where you must learn to tolerate your circumstances, all the while enduring great pain and discomfort. In that story, pointing fingers at others, at being the source of your own discomfort. But something has shifted on this planet. We're not asking you, using our analogy, going to the ocean, to just take life at face value. No, indeed. We've gone beyond that. You, those of you who are at the forefront of this change in consciousness, know that it must be a part of your experience for it to be real for you, even if you're the only one that does experience it. There is a small but very potent group of human beings who stopped looking outside of themselves for answers. They looked within. They looked within. It's not the easiest choice for any human because it requires such a degree of integrity. It requires so much courage to experience that part that just knows and to consciously acknowledge the parts that don't. We call that conscious living. Conscious living. The part of you that knows, your soul, your eternal self, the eternal one, can feel like a complete stranger to your mind. It has no form. It doesn't need to use words to communicate. And it doesn't reside inside of time and space unless it chooses to. So for the adventurous human who is willing to go within, they eventually realize that the parts that don't know exist outside the presence of consciousness. And that's a huge awareness. The very presence that supports and gives birth to all of life. And of course you would ask, well then what supports them? And as we have said before, they exist within a mental construct created by the mind. What we perceive to be a fabricated version of life itself, and what we have called an illusion. Why? Because these mental-based creations cannot support themselves. They rely on energies from outside of them to support them. It gave birth to a very unique identity where most of humanity is not called sacred. Most of humanity is called a consumer. Ones that need energy outside of them to support this mental construct. So for the ones that have the courage to go within, this of course is very unsettling. It stirs things up. If indeed you are not your mind, if you are not these human-based beliefs, if you're not these human emotions, and if you're not this carbon-based body, then who the hell are you? And how do you know that that is you? And that, my friends, is why we are here. Not to tell you who you are in so many words, but to remind you that there is indeed a part of you that does know. It doesn't rely on information to know itself. And that's a relief. If you've been searching and searching for more information to enhance these mental-based beliefs, sometimes the mind in that search ends up getting so confused because what it is looking for is one truth. And so it will explore a variety of different teachings and find that there isn't this one truth, that every teacher that's speaking on behalf of consciousness has their own unique perspective. Let's take a deep breath there. This part that we are speaking of supports itself within a state of consciousness that is all-inclusive. One that has no agenda, no expectations, and no control issues. One that perceives fear as an illusion, for that feeling does not exist within its own beingness. And we get it. If you're listening to us from your mind, all this sounds like just a fairy tale. All this sounds like, why should we trust or believe in what you're sharing when 99% of humanity doesn't know this to be even real? And that's why we say to those that we are so honored to serve, integrating this type of intuitive knowing is not for the faint of heart. It is not. Even those of you at the forefront of this change, who in so many ways are like the most courageous beings in all of creation. Hard to believe once you're here. But indeed, it does take that kind of courage. But of course, we are just repeating what all of you who are at the forefront of this change of consciousness, you already know. Your life has already been turned upside down. You've gone through the dark night of the soul. Some of you, addicted to your mind and the drama that the mind likes to create as energy to support itself, you're recreating that whole dark night of the soul to stir up more drama. You knew it wouldn't be easy for your human self. Why? Because before you came here, and looking at all your past reincarnations, all your past lives, you grew to realize that this human self has been conditioned to react to life from a place of survival. Now, naturally, all of you would want to know, well, how did that develop? How did that develop? And we encourage you, one, to read our books or other books that you're drawn to, but in a way, finding the most pure story that gives you the absolute truth of how all of creation became what it is now, and your part in it, you're not going to find it. you're going to find different facets of that truth. And you're going to discover even those like myself as Michael. We don't know everything. We do know that joy is real. And without knowing everything, we're not going to stop living from a place of joy. Some would say, how do you know that whoever is in charge of consciousness existing doesn't just turn off the lights and all of creation is no longer here? We don't know that either. We don't know that. And we're okay with that. We continue living from a place of joy. This mind in the human story supports these mental-based perceptions of fearing life by simply using your human history as its only reference. And it just keeps digging itself deeper and deeper. And if your documented history represents the only version of your reality, then of course the games of power and control and dominion over others, they'll continue. For that has been the story for a long, long time. But those that we are speaking to today have decided not to play that game any longer by going within. They discovered a new way to support their life that is free of competition, that is free of goal setting, that is most definitely free of all these power struggles. They discovered that from within, something that was quite profound. You are not alone. This whole mental perception that you are separated from life, in a way, that is what created fear for the human. Feeling alone, not feeling safe. Now, of course, a lot of those same feelings came with you as a soul from a variety of different star systems, from a variety of different spiritual families. And so Earth was an opportunity to acknowledge that and then to set it free. Not by trying to get rid of it, but by allowing yourself to feel that part that just knows, to shine its light on the parts that don't trust, that perceive vulnerability as being a weakness, that see that their purpose in life is to improve their condition. Our wisdom on that is good luck, trying to improve the conditions of those that are conditioned not to be improved. And so discovering that you are not alone didn't come to so many of you because you found yourself on the Starship Enterprise in a blink of an eye, or that you encountered what you think to be the ETs coming here to Earth. What you discovered was a variety of energetic beings, a presence, non-physical counterparts of your own soul that are continuously offering their support and guidance for you. These beings won't interfere with your life, but their light is freely shared to remind you that you too are spirit, to remind you that the light that supports them is also within you. Now, your scientists, as they have for a very long time, tried to find that light inside this physical body, and they have yet to find it, and they never will. When we say that light is inside you, we're not speaking about your body. You are that light inside this body. You are that light coexisting with this mind. You are that light coexisting with these human emotions. You are that light in its own form, what many call the etheric body, the light body, that as we speak is also integrating with this physical body. What you discovered in realizing you're not alone, and that you too are spirit. And as spirit, you too have been gifted with the ability to create your own experience. Now, if that's spoken to one who hasn't allowed that part that knows without knowing how it knows to be present, that sounds like such an egotistical statement. And that's all it is, if you're just listening from your mind. But the gift of being a creator of your own experience is not a gift that needs to be earned. You don't have to do anything to receive it. The fact that you exist already as a human being, as a soul, grants you all the permission that you need to use this gift. But for those that ventured within, you also discovered that this gift isn't very effective inside your conditioned human story. One that is based in doubt, worry, and concern. One that has you feeling victimized by the circumstances in your life. Over time, you realize there also exists other versions of your own story, and as well a story that is entirely new. One that experiences each day from a place of joy. How new is that? Brand new. Brand new. You see, there are those who look at this joy as it relates to the power struggle, as it relates to dominion over others. That's not the joy that we are speaking of. The one that knows without knowing how it knows that it is constantly supported by the presence of consciousness. Lack in any form simply does not exist within this presence, within your divine story. So many of you, as we speak, are in the process of allowing this most sacred story to blend and merge with your human story, and have made yet another bold choice. Some of you are actually allowing your sacredness, your divine story, this presence, your own energy, to be at the forefront of your own life. Wow. Wow. You recognize that it didn't require of any of you to get rid of your human story. Quite the contrary. It requires of you quite the opposite. It requires of you to honor your story simply by accepting it. all parts of it, just as it is. Because truly, that's how this presence that knows without knowing that it knows, how it perceives life, and is just into living without knowing, without really knowing how did this all come to be, without really knowing before there was this eternal one, what else was there? Who created the eternal one? And how did these eternal selves come into being? Just because the eternal one set them free, there must be some kind of physics involved. Indeed, there is. And in so doing, you are now allowing the light of your own divine story to shine upon those parts of you that feel so wounded by this human experience. It's taken us through Robert the last 25 years to work with some of the most courageous beings in all of creation to get to this place where you're now allowing this presence to do what? To love you back. To just love you back. And you're discovering that that experience deeply touches your heart. It brings tears to the wounded human heart. Because for most of you, you've never experienced an unconditional love. You've been waiting for some other human being to appreciate and respect you in a ways that you know you deserve, but you just haven't felt it yet. As we've said many times, you can continue to wait for another human being to respect you and appreciate you, but you might be here a long time, many more lifetimes, before you actually experience that. This light that we speak of, that's shared by this presence, offers a profound gift to all these parts of who you also are. With arms wide open, this light represents your own consciousness and invites any part that feels separate from this light to come back home. Not back to the kingdom, not back to your spiritual family, not back to your idea of what home is on the other side of the veil. It's inviting you to come back to your own consciousness, to your own light, just as you are. Come back to your own eternal self, the I am. Let's take a moment here. And let's acknowledge those very wounded parts inside of you. And by acknowledging them, let's accept them just as they are. They don't need to change. They don't need to become improved versions of themselves so that you're not so embarrassed by how wounded they are and the influence that puts onto your own human identity. Let's see if there's an openness to just accept them. And as you accept them, and as you can feel the presence of your own eternal self, the presence of your own soul, allow the light that's constantly being radiated and shared by those other parts of who you also are that are not wounded to just share their light on that wounded human story. They won't force this light on you. They're not going to twist your arm to receive it. But if you're really done with all the pain, if you're done with all the discomfort, if you're done feeling inadequate, insecure, insignificant, then this light is here waiting to serve you. And it serves you by allowing you to reunite with it. This is where we are with so many of you. It's a huge crossroad. It represents the type of integration that we've been teaching through Robert for the last 26 years. And it's becoming real. We see it. Some of you would say, well, why does it take so long? Because what you have invited into your human experience must be respected. Because its impact on your life is indeed quite profound. So if now is not the time for you, for your human story to be loved back, we're not here to condemn you. We're not here to tell you to get off the fence, to stop procrastinating. We said that to all of you years ago so that you could be in this moment here with us. We're now here to tell you to take all the time you need. For having this presence in your life is going to change your life in a very dramatic way. Take all the time you need out of respect for the carbon-based bodies that are working overtime to accommodate such a presence. Take all the time you need to slowly adjust to a multifaceted presence that will challenge your reliance on your singular mind, who only sees itself as one identity, the one with its name on your driver's license. Take all the time you need to fully experience a state of love that is truly unconditional, that will transform those human emotions and allow you to finally feel how it feels to be in this type of divine joy. No matter how much time you need to make this real for you, your time has come. This is your time, but again, take all the time you need. And while you're in this place with this new opportunity, it's time to celebrate, is it not? For all the hard work, for all the things that you've uncovered in yourself, it's really time to celebrate, to honor you as a human, to honor you as a soul, to honor you as this eternal self, to honor you as this eternal one, experiencing itself outside the comfort zone of what you call the kingdom, home. Didn't have to make that choice. And of course, if it hadn't, you wouldn't be here in this way. Nor would I, as Michael, be here in this way. But this eternal one wanted to know itself as not always one, but as individuated aspects of itself, fragments of itself, facets of itself. It's incredible. It's simply incredible that as the eternal one, we can talk to ourselves and see that we are not separate, but we are indeed unique, sovereign representations of that original energy, that original presence, that original state of consciousness. No matter your circumstances, as your freedom begins to emerge from the shadows of your own light, it's time to celebrate. It truly is. For this is your time. All our blessings, dear ones.